Hello Beer Geeks and welcome to another episode of the Craft Beer channel, or if you're an Untappd user, an intervention. Now before you think this is going to be a hit piece on Untappd, it's very much not. I love Untappd. I still use it every time I go into a bottle shop, every time I go to a new city, every time I want to research a new brewery. It's the first place that I go, and that's why we need to talk about it. It has between 8 and 9 million users, over 900 million, maybe over a billion beers have been checked in, and it's everybody's way in. Even me way back in 2010, just as it was founded, was using it as a resource to learn about beer and make choices about which breweries and which beers I would actually consume. It's that amount of power and that amount of data and that amount of usage that means it's A, an incredibly powerful and brilliant tool, but B, means it has some considerable flaws. And we're going to talk today about how to get the best from Untappd and how to use it in a way that's going to benefit the industry that we all love. So today we're going to talk to 4 specific flaws that I've found either through my life as a beer geek and as a YouTuber, but also just as a user of Untappd and stuff that has either frustrated me or stuff that I think either you need to change, Untappd needs to change, or maybe I need to change. While I do so, I'm going to drink a beer from Standard Brew Co, who are a brand new brewery. And the reason that I'm doing that is because not only do they own one of my favourite pubs in the world, the Stag, but they are just starting on their journey of being a brewery. And actually, what happens to them on Untappd is probably more important than what happens to them in any other sphere of beer culture. Now, there's a famous saying, I believe it was Nietzsche, who said that madness in the individual is rare, but in a crowd, it's the rule. And that is kind of the first flaw of Untappd. It's some kind of mass bias. Now, I'm going to be demonstrating all of my points on the Untappd app. And we're going to start with the brewery that's basically at the top of it, and that is Hill Farmstead. They are the world's most famous brewery, the one that we've driven to many hours out of our way in less than favourable conditions to go visit. And when we went there, we tried a beer called Poetica No. 3. And it was a really nice beer. It was a really good lager. It had everything you'd look for in a Bohemian Pilsner. It had that kind of caramel note from the decoction. It had a lovely breadiness. It had a nice hoppiness. It was a well-made beer. But it was, you know, if it had been brewed in the Czech Republic, it would have been an average beer. So imagine my surprise when I went to check this beer in while we were there and found that it had a whole point that is 20% higher than what I regard as probably the best lager at that strength, which is the Untappd 12 Plato beer. Now, no disrespect to Hill Farmstead, Poetica No. 3 is a good beer. We really enjoyed it. But Untappd, when we went to that brewery, was a life-changing experience. And since we've been there, we've heard of so many breweries that were inspired to make lager by tasting that beer. We've heard of so many drinkers who never loved lager and tried that one, fell in love, and now it's all they want to drink from going to that brewery or tasting that beer. It is a truly world-class beer, but it's languishing at 3.45 when Poetica No. 3 is at 4.24. And it's this kind of collective hysteria around certain brands, certain breweries, certain beers, and certain styles that removes any sense of objectivity from the rating website. Now, there's lots of things feeding into this. Obviously, the reputation that Hill Farmstead has definitely affects that. You're not just drinking a lager, and we'll get to the fact that lagers are often rated lower on Untappd anyway, but you're drinking a Hill Farmstead beer, right? This is a major event. Either you've gone there, so you've driven a long way, you've been excited about this trip forever because you know you're going to have some amazing beers, or maybe some friends have brought some over and it's a bottle share and you're incredibly excited and you're bound to rate them a little bit higher. Or indeed, if something's really disappointing, you're bound to rate it a little bit lower. But I've caught myself doing reviews from world-class breweries where it hasn't massively impressed me, but I've still given it a higher score because I sort of think, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just not understanding this, or maybe I'm not understanding the intentions of the brewer. And it can give breweries a little bit of a free pass when it comes to these rating websites because people don't want to be seen as outliers. Another example I have of that happening is actually one that happened on the Craft Beer channel, where we got back all excited from filming our New England documentary with a precious can of King Julius by Treehouse. Now, I love Treehouse. I've been multiple times. I have muled beer over because I think that they make incredible beer. And so I was so excited to have the King Julius. And when Brad and I cracked it, poured it into the glass, we were like, huh.
And what colour would you describe that as?
I'd describe that as muddy caramel if I was buying the paint.
It's definitely muddy. I mean, if I'd produced that myself at the doctor's office, I'd be very concerned. On your deathbed, yeah. Very concerned.
And we tried it, and yeah, it was an incredibly badly oxidised can. It was earthy, it was caramelly, it was cardboardy. It was just not right. So I went on Untappd to see, you know, is this common with Treehouse? Is this a batch issue? What's everybody else saying about this particular batch? And I found endless photos of the same beer that we had, like properly dark, like looking like a brown ale, nasty stuff. Between 4.5 and 5 stars, pretty much all the way down. People saying still the king, people saying, you know, sweeter than I expected because they're picking up on the, you know, the caramelized oxidation notes, and just not being able to believe that Treehouse could release a bad beer. And I'm sure if you spoke to Treehouse, they would say, yes, we've released bad beers. You know, we didn't know it at the time, but we've had the feedback, we've learned from it. And they'd be shocked to hear that we had that experience. But on Untappd, the hype machine rolls on regardless. And the best thing we can do as users of Untappd is recognise that when breweries have these incredibly inflated reputations, whether it's fair or whether it's not, just to try and detach ourselves a little bit. And a great way of doing that is, you know, every now and then, taste a beer blind. Get somebody to wrap it up for you if it's going to be something special, or just don't look at the bottle when somebody hands you some. Give it a try and then ask what it is. And we can start to try and work through these biases that we have. The next flaw is the simplest one and also the simplest to fix, and Untappd have never done it. And I've said it even to people at Untappd, I've said it to people at beer festivals, we've said it on this channel multiple times, that the biggest issue with Untappd is that it compares apples and pears, or cider and perries and New Englands and lagers. That didn't work, but the point is hopefully clear. We've got this beautiful world-class lager like the Untappd compared with a 12% imperial stout with coconut, maple syrup, marshmallows. You know, it's incredibly hard to review those objectively one after the other. One is going to be an assault on the senses, it's going to be exciting, it's going to be silly, it's going to be a really memorable moment. The other one is a beautiful pint that you might have 3 or 4 of while on holiday in the Czech Republic. So the fact that they have the same rating systems and will sit next to each other on that website and we'll be told that the imperial stout is, you know, 2 out of 5 better than the lager is patently nonsense. And the way that Rate Beer, the OG of beer rating websites, got around it was really simple. They had their score for the beer itself, and then they had the score adapted towards the style that it is, so compared purely against other lagers. And you could see the effect of that on Rate Beer really clearly. Beers like Augustina Helles would have a bonkersly low score of like 45, 50, 55 out of 100 in the overall score, but once you went to by style, so it was compared to other Helles, it would have 95, 98, possibly even 100 for that particular beer, because it is one of the best lagers in the world. And Untappd need desperately to introduce that feature, because otherwise what's happening is you're getting thousands, millions of beer geeks, of those 8 or 9 million people, so many of those will be dismissing lagers, brown ales, best bitters, even like session IPAs, table beers that are New England style that should be, you know, loved by the masses, and they're just being passed over because they're being given lower scores because they're not the event that a double, a triple IPA, you know, is in a bottle share. And it's understandable why people are rating that way. Absolutely understandable, and the users shouldn't change the way that they rate it because, yeah, it is a huge and exciting event. But Untappd has to account for that. It's such a simple fix. They could probably call up they probably couldn't call up Rate Beer, but they should know how to do that, and it would be a really simple fix that would really help encourage a major issue we have in the craft beer world, which is a lack of diversity in styles being sold in terms of actual tap share on the bar or fridge share in a bottle shop. We are so IPA heavy, and Untappd is not helping. The next flaw is not Untappd's fault, it's not the user's fault. Sometimes it's not even the brewer's fault, sometimes it's the pub's fault. But that is the fact that beer is incredibly delicate. Okay, what's released out of the brewery should be in tip-top condition always, Treehouse. But it's not always guaranteed to be beautiful once it hits the bottle shop, once it hits the pub, or even once it gets to a tap room, particularly if it's another location. And Untappd can't really account for the fact that beer can be stored badly. Now, we've done lots of videos on how it's stored badly and the effect that it has, and you can watch those up here. The one on off flavors, we've got the one on how you're probably buying craft beer wrong. That was a clickbaity one, I enjoyed that. So you can watch those and see what we mean. I won't go too much into that now. But basically, we're seeing negative reviews for beers that don't necessarily deserve it, because it's not down to the brewer, it's not down to the beer, not down to the brand that person didn't have a good behind. It could be dirty lines in the bar. It could have been stored at 30 degrees C for a week and all of the hop aroma is gone. It just tastes of dust now. And if you rate that beer as if it was in the pinnacle of its condition, you just go, nah, it's a shit beer, you're going to be telling your friends, don't try that, it's rubbish. Even though probably at the same time there's 100 other people in a pub just down the road with clean lines thinking, this is the best pale ale I think I've ever had. So how do we fix that? Untappd can't really account for that. You could put a little box that goes like, wasn't in peak condition, or pub accepted it was wrong, took it back to the bar. But I don't know how helpful that would be. I don't know how expert drinkers are in sort of spotting that. But if you've got the knowledge to understand where those faults might be coming from, to understand that it might not be a brewer's fault, then the best thing you can do is not rate it on that occasion. By all means, check it in. It might remind you, or by all means, check it in and put a little note going, just in the review bit, just saying, well, the lines weren't clean, or it had a hint of diac that might have come from hop creep or something like that. If you put that in, you'll remember it and not dismiss the beer, and other people will understand it, but you haven't given it a rating that's fed into that algorithm and is potentially destroying that beer's reputation. So the final flaw, it's a bit of a subjective one. It's one that's always annoyed me, and why I don't use Untappd as much as I used to, or why I often forget to use Untappd and go to check through going, what did I think of that beer, and then realise I didn't actually check it in. And that's the fact that they call it Drink Social. But it's not a social app. It's really not. You can toast people, but most of the people who toast mine and the people that I toast, I've never met them. I'm not entirely sure who they are, to be honest, because we can't really interact. You can put a comment underneath. If somebody drinks an exciting beer, you can go, hey, I really enjoyed this one. But there's not a lot of feedback there. There's not a lot of feedback from the brewers, because I don't think Untappd are doing a good enough job of asking the brewers to interact in a positive way with the people that are using it. And it's not a very user-friendly journey as well to do that. I mean, there's lots of little things with Untappd that bug me. Like sometimes when you're scrolling, you accidentally toast beers. So I've toasted pints of Foster's, Stella. I've toasted people that have gone, this beer is sour, it's not meant to be. And just gone, hey, good. Because, that's just not something that they seem to be focusing on. It would be so much better if you could tag people in the comments. So much better if you could start a conversation with those brewers. So much better if you could create almost the Twitter or the Facebook levels of interaction that will get people talking about specific beers, about specific festivals and stuff like that, so that we can have a conversation around it. Because I know there's a huge amount of frustration from the brewing side, because they feel like they cannot interact with Untappd users when they give a bad review. They can't explain it, or check, or say we want to offer you a new beer because that's not how it should have tasted, or stuff like that. It's very, very difficult to do and requires a lot of effort on the brewer's part, time that these tiny businesses probably don't have. They probably don't have a social media person. It's literally, with most breweries, it's the brewer waiting for his beer to come to the boil going, oh, check Untappd, and then being like, ah! So no, I have seen that happen, actually. I was about to take that back. So increasing the actual drink social element of Untappd could really help with the education side of drinkers, but also the education side of brewers who don't understand, perhaps, how these beers that they're putting out into the world are either getting ruined or being misunderstood by the drinkers. In terms of what drinkers can do to improve the situation, so much of the scrolling that I do through Untappd, I just see low scores with no explanation. And that's really frustrating if you're a brewer, because what it means is something's gone wrong with that, because you probably thought that beer was great, but you have absolutely no idea what's gone wrong there. So if you are going to score a beer really highly, great, you don't have to put anything. The brewer will be like, bing, bing, although you should put something. If you're going to score it really low, please, please, please give an explanation. And please, please, please don't make that explanation, I don't like sour beer, I don't like bitter beer, I don't like strong beer. If you don't like those styles, don't rate it. Check it in, write the words, but do not rate it if you were never going to like it in the first place, or you're just testing out that style. So If you're going to give it a low score, explain why, because it will help the brewer and it will help everybody else and it will help that social aspect. So I hope that's been helpful in teaching you how to use Untappd a little bit better, whether you're at Untappd, are you listening? Don't know. Or if you're a brewer or if you're a drinker. If you don't know what Untappd is, it's brilliant. I know what I've just been saying means it sounds like it's got lots of flaws, but it's such a great way to discover new breweries, discover new pubs, and discover new beers and see what other people that you respect and love are drinking. If you want to follow me on Untappd, my username is JohnnyCBC, and you will see me not use it for days on end and then check in a whole bunch of them as I remember that I should be doing it. And it's a great way also to get a little sneak peek on what's coming out on the craft beer channel soon. So give that a little go, and please use Untappd responsibly, because it's making or breaking beautiful new breweries, beautiful new businesses, and it's informing those who might know less or might know more. It doesn't really matter. It's telling them this stuff is good, this stuff needs work, and this is what to drink to have the absolute best experience that we can within this hobby that we all love. Cheers.